Emma Thompson and her quiet suburban neighbor seemed like ordinary lives on King Road until a single horrifying morning turned their street into a chilling crime scene no one could forget. On a foggy Tuesday morning, King Road seemed unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that immediately raises suspicion. Neighbors, who were accustomed to the hum of morning routines and distant car engines, noticed something different. There was a heaviness in the air, a subtle tension that made people pause at their windows. At the end of the street, a modest suburban house, normally unremarkable, had its front door slightly ajar. Police tape cordoned off the entrance, and a small crowd had begun to gather, murmuring anxiously among themselves. Detectives arrived swiftly, their footsteps echoing across the damp pavement as they assessed the scene. Inside the house, the investigators were confronted with an unsettling sight. A young woman lay lifeless on the kitchen floor, her body positioned unnaturally, almost as if she had been placed there deliberately. The room around her was in chaos. Broken dishes littered the floor, chairs were overturned, and a single trail of muddy footprints led toward the back door, leaving a stark contrast against the polished hardwood. The air smelled faintly of bleach, as if someone had tried to erase the evidence, but it was too late. Forensic teams moved methodically, examining every detail with precision. It quickly became apparent that the crime had been staged with disturbing care. There were no signs of forced entry, no valuables taken, yet the scene was crafted to confuse and disorient anyone who came across it. Each object, each smear of blood, seemed to have been placed intentionally, a grotesque message left for anyone trying to understand what had happened. Neighbors whispered about hearing strange noises the night before, footsteps in the hallways, muffled sounds that they had dismissed at the time. Now, those small observations became crucial. Investigators began retracing the victim's steps, speaking with friends and family, trying to piece together the hours leading up to her death. Every account was carefully documented, and yet contradictions emerged, further complicating the timeline. The deeper they looked, the more unsettling the picture became. This was not a random act of violence. It was planned, precise, and deeply personal. The fog that hung over King Road that morning seemed to mirror the confusion and dread that would settle over the neighborhood for weeks to come. Residents, once secure in their quiet suburban lives, now faced the horrifying reality that someone had violated the very heart of their community, leaving behind questions that seemed impossible to answer and a scene that would haunt their memories indefinitely. Investigators quickly turned their attention to the small, unsettling details within the house, realizing that the crime scene held more secrets than initially apparent. On a lower shelf of the living room bookshelf, a seemingly ordinary stack of novels caught the eye of a detective. Upon closer inspection, one of the books had a loose binding, revealing a small, blood-stained envelope tucked inside. The contents were even more disturbing, handwritten notes suggesting that the victim had been watched for weeks, her daily routines meticulously recorded. Each entry contained minute observations: what she ate, where she went, even the people she spoke to, demonstrating a level of obsession that chilled the investigators. Meanwhile, detectives reviewed security footage from neighboring homes. For days leading up to the murder, a shadowy figure had been seen lingering near the property, sometimes appearing to wait for hours. The angles of the cameras were frustratingly poor, offering only fleeting glimpses of the person's face, leaving more questions than answers. The police then moved to the attic, where a locked trunk caught their attention. Inside were dozens of photographs of the victim taken at different times and locations, all without her knowledge. Each image captured private moments, from quiet walks down the street to seemingly mundane tasks in her home. The collection revealed an unnerving fascination, and the realization struck the team: this was not a random act of violence. It was personal. Every piece of evidence painted a picture of meticulous planning and careful observation. Investigators began to consider the psychological state of the perpetrator, understanding that this individual had spent weeks, perhaps months, calculating every step. They looked for patterns in the notes and photographs, trying to determine a motive, but the obsession itself seemed to be the driving force. The evidence suggested someone who thrived on control, someone who derived satisfaction from watching and manipulating without being seen. Even the footprints that had led to the back door of the house became significant. Forensic analysis revealed unusual patterns in the soil, indicating the person had returned multiple times, ensuring that traces remained to confuse investigators. With each discovery, the sense of unease grew. The house that once felt familiar now seemed like a trap, a carefully constructed stage for an incomprehensible crime. It became clear that to solve this case, detectives would need to understand not just who committed the act, but why someone would devote so much time and energy to stalking, photographing, and ultimately ending the life of an innocent woman, leaving a chilling mark on King Road. The investigation soon turned to the neighbors, focusing on anyone who lived close to the victim and might have had the chance to commit the crime. Across the street lived a man who quickly became suspicious. On paper, his story seemed solid, but detectives noticed small inconsistencies in his timeline. He acted calm, almost too calm, as if nothing could disturb him. When police searched his home, what they found was shocking. Maps of King Road were spread across a table, with each house carefully marked with dates, times, and strange notes in red ink. In one corner, small models of the nearby houses sat neatly, some showing signs of tampering, like broken doors or missing windows. Further searches revealed hidden cameras, recording devices, and notebooks filled with detailed observations of residents' daily routines. He had been tracking not just the victim, but several households, suggesting an obsession with the entire neighborhood. Even with all this evidence, linking him directly to the murder was difficult. The breakthrough came when experts re-examined the muddy footprints in the victim's kitchen. The soil in the footprints was rare and matched only the backyard of this neighbor's property. It was a small but clear connection, placing him near the crime scene at the right time. Still, detectives didn't understand his motive. Why choose this woman when he had been watching many people? As the investigation continued, patterns became clear. The photos in his collection mirrored the staged chaos in the King Road house, from the placement of objects to the broken furniture. Each act seemed designed to show control and scare the neighborhood. Neighbors recalled strange moments, glimpses of him peering out of windows, sounds of movement late at night, small details they had ignored before but now seemed important. It became obvious that this was not a single, random act of violence. His obsession with control and his ability to avoid detection made him dangerous. Detectives realized they were not just chasing a killer, they were trying to understand a mind that could turn an entire street into a stage for terror. Just as they thought they were closing in, a shocking discovery changed everything. A few miles away, in an old abandoned warehouse, a second body was found. The scene was similar to King Road, items deliberately moved, chaos carefully arranged, and footprints leading to the exit. Forensic experts immediately saw the signs of the same killer. Inside the warehouse, a hidden journal was discovered, with detailed notes about the murders, descriptions of victims' routines, and evidence of obsession. The journal suggested this was part of a series, with each murder becoming more complex. Detectives realized they were hunting a serial offender, someone whose need for control went far beyond a single crime. The King Road crime scene, once seen as the starting point, was now just one piece of a larger, chilling puzzle. Detectives were racing against time, trying to predict the offender's next move and stop more victims from being added to this terrifying sequence that had already shaken the community. After months of tireless investigation, surveillance, and forensic work, the breakthrough finally came. The man who had lived across from King Road was arrested in the early hours of a gray morning. Police entered his home cautiously, fully aware of the disturbing evidence they had already uncovered. Inside, the house revealed the full extent of his obsession, hidden cameras still recording, tracking devices embedded in personal belongings, and extensive blueprints of King Road and surrounding streets. Every room seemed to tell the story of his meticulous planning, from the placement of photographs to detailed journals outlining the routines of multiple residents. The arrest sent shockwaves through the community, which had been living in quiet fear for months. People who had once felt safe in their homes were suddenly confronted with the terrifying realization that the man next door had been monitoring them, cataloging their every move, and orchestrating a series of calculated murders. As legal proceedings began, the court uncovered the horrifying extent of his obsession. The journals and photographs formed the backbone of the case, clearly linking him to multiple crimes, including the King Road murder. Psychologists testified about his compulsive need for control and his gratification from manipulating both victims and the investigation. The community watched in disbelief as the man, once an unassuming neighbor, was revealed as a calculating serial offender. Evidence suggested that the King Road murder had been a carefully staged experiment in a longer series, a step in a twisted game he had been perfecting for years. The revelation left residents grappling with disbelief, anger, and fear, struggling to reconcile the ordinary image of their neighbor with the criminal mastermind he had become. In the aftermath, King Road slowly returned to its quiet routines, but the shadow of the crimes lingered. Residents remained cautious, forever aware that the tranquility of suburban life could hide something far darker beneath the surface. The case became a landmark for criminal profiling, demonstrating the danger of obsessive behavior and the importance of thorough investigation, even when evidence seems small or trivial. Police officers who had worked on the case described the experience as chilling and unforgettable, noting the meticulous nature of the crimes and the psychological depth of the offender. Though justice had been served with the arrest and conviction, the story of King Road left a lasting mark. The neighborhood would never forget the fear, the intrusion, and the terrifying realization that someone could manipulate and observe their lives so completely. The crime scene that had initially seemed like an isolated tragedy became a symbol of the darker side of human obsession, a reminder that even the most ordinary streets can hide the most disturbing secrets. The King Road case would remain etched in memory as a story of suspense, fear, and the relentless pursuit of truth in the face of unimaginable darkness.